he doesn't care what's behind there as long as he has access to them. And whatever is behind there, he can probably help you clear out that room and turn it around to something in his image. Welcome back to the Junior Mints podcast. This podcast is here to help you guys navigate life while also helping you guys see the fun sides of life as well. My name is Finn Lawler. I'm your host. Let's jump right in. So today in this episode, what we're going to be talking about is basically the idea of spiritual rooms, and just rooms of the heart. And yeah, there's a teleprompter over here. So if I keep looking away, that's why. So like rooms in your heart. And basically, what are the rooms in your heart that Jesus doesn't know about? Are there any? And maybe there are. And would you be willing to let Jesus into those rooms so he can kind of do his magic and kind of just see what he can do? So we're gonna be talking about that today. Um, yeah. So there are some rooms, of course, that we maybe are ashamed of. I totally get it. I There were some rooms in like I've been there. So anyway, some rooms take longer to open. This entire episode really it revolves around trusting God. That's it. The rooms is a metaphor for letting him into your life and letting him kind of clean up the areas that maybe you're ashamed of or maybe you're not proud of. So I get it. It's more difficult. It can be difficult to trust God with some things, but once you trust God with that, with whatever it is, it's just so good. Like some rooms, I will. It's okay if some rooms take longer to open. That's perfectly fine. It just means maybe it means you have a lot to kind of reveal and give to God. So some rooms are easy to open with God, other rooms are not. It's okay. Um, but he trusts you to have him eventually open he trusts he knows that you trust in him, and when the time is right, he knows that you'll open those doors for him. So kind of earlier, God has access to some of those rooms in your heart already. Um, Whether we know it or not, God has access to some of those rooms. For example, he has access to our heart. So, because our heart is kind of like the spiritual kitchen where all the decisions are made, all the emotions are given. He has access to those. What he doesn't have access to is those rooms that are still behind lock and key. So the only thing he's doing in this case when he wants to open those doors, he's asking you he's just asking you to take a peek behind those doors and see what's even behind there. He doesn't care what's behind there as long as he has access to them. And whatever is behind there, he can probably help you clear out that room and turn it around to something in his image for him instead of Satan or whoever. So this is the important thing. Um, there are certain steps you have to take in order to let God have access to those rooms. There's a few hundred steps. No, I'm kidding. There's like three different steps you have to take. But I will tell you, once you take these steps, it'll feel like all the doors are open in your house and just God is in there completely. And the first and probably the most important thing, step one, is to trust in Him. Step two, no, I'm just kidding. There is no step two. The only thing you have to do in order for God to even have access to those rooms is just trust in Him. And I keep saying, He will take care of it. So, a little story for you. When I was still struggling with, you know, porn addiction, which come on, every guy does, even some women do. Um, the teleprompter here. I I was struggling with that porn addiction, and that honestly, that was the last thing I wanted to trust God with. And sure, it was the last thing I wanted to trust Him with, even though it should have been the very first thing. Because once I trusted Him with that and I gave it to Him and He made me accountable for what I had done, it felt so much easier to get over that addiction and to actually move towards something fruitful in my life. So it doesn't matter what you're struggling with. I mean, to be honest with you, if you're struggling through something like really tough, like a drug addiction or a porn addiction or something, and you think that maybe it's the last thing that God would want to hear about, no, in fact, it's actually the first thing that God wants to hear about. He wants you to tell him that you're struggling with like alcohol or porn or whatever. He wants you to say that. He already knows that you're struggling with it. He wants he just wants you to admit that you're struggling with it. Cuz once you admit that you're struggling with that and you trust him that way, dude, let me tell you, the process of healing really starts to take place, and you will he will help you in ways that you can't even imagine. So, it's one of those things, just it's kind of like eating the frog, where you trust God with like the biggest issue in your life, and then once you do that, easy breeze. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Um, but just remember to trust in God. If you're, yeah, just give it to Him. Whatever it is, just give it to Him. He will help you through it. He's always there to help you through it. He's never not been there. He's always been there to help you, and He will continue to be there to help you, which I think is very reassuring. So, sometimes only God has the good, like the right key for those doors. Um, yeah, sure, you could go to like therapy or something, but I don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing therapy in any capacity. Um, there are just some things that you have to go to God for. And yeah, you could still go to therapy. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. Therapy's great. It's awesome. God's awesome too. So if there's something that you just can't get resolved in therapy, then maybe God could help with that. I don't know. I'm Sometimes the therapy key doesn't quite work. Maybe it does. I'm not sure. I can't speak for all therapists. I'm not a therapist. I don't even know. But sometimes the God key is kind of what you need. That's just speculation. If you disagree with me, I'm sorry. That's just how I view it. I'm not against therapy in any scenario. I think therapy is great. But sometimes there are only keys that God has that can help you and can open those doors for you. So, anyway, hopefully you guys kind of enjoyed that room and key metaphor. That's once someone explained it that way to me, it was like, dude, that makes so much sense. So, I mean, if you're struggling with trust and you don't know where to go, and maybe take a look inside to see if there's any keys or rooms that maybe God hasn't entered yet. What are they? What kind of, if you want, leave them down in the comments. Just kind of like let me know. Maybe tell me what rooms God has yet to open in your spiritual house, I guess. But just it doesn't hurt to let him in. God just wants to hang out with you in your house. That's all he wants to do. So, are you going to let him into your house? I strongly encourage you guys to let him into your house, because once you let him into your house, it's a party. Anyway, this has been the Junior Mints Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you'd enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe down below, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.